Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. I'm Matt, one of your hosts, and I'm back this week. It's been a minute since I've gotten to sit in front of a camera and chat with you guys. Well, I guess it's not been quite so long for you, but from my perspective, it's been a minute, and that's because we've been building. We have been building something totally new, something that we believe operates at the highest capacity of what it can do, and it is coming to you guys very soon. It is our own Impossible app built to help design maximum human potential in your own life, help you to build and implement and help you to realize the dreams and outcomes you were hoping to achieve with it. It is the entire system that Austin and I have constructed, built, cultivated, implemented time and again, both through our battles with cancer, other physical challenge, even goals like marathons, 500-pound deadlift, ultimately the 500-pound squat. Everything we've done that has seemed or actually quite been impossible has been built with this system, and now it's been structured, uniquely designed, and built into an app for you guys to be able to incorporate into your own pursuits for life today. It serves as a great space for you as an individual to use, whether it's for athletic achievement, business, education, whatever you're pursuing in life. But one of the greatest features of it is actually also the highest level interface between coach and client that has ever been created. So we're going to be able to offer this to other coaches in the space. If you guys have a coach you work with already, have them get in touch with us. They can email matt@impossibleperformance.com or go to impossibleperformance.com/app. All of those links will be in the show notes today. But they can jump on and use it, and everything in your coaching client relationship can happen under one space, one application on your phone, one area you go to see everything you need to do for the day, communicate with your coach directly, and you can both track and communicate your progress in real time. And while the app is the greatest system we've ever built for what we're going to be talking about today, it's not the entirety of what we're covering today, because today we are talking about potential itself. And we've long said at Impossible Performance that we are in the business of human potential, and now that has come to full realization with our app, both for you in your personal life and for working with your coach, whomever that may be. But what we want to discuss today is how to realize that potential. How to foster this understanding and belief within yourself that you are capable of things far beyond what you would ever allow yourself to believe. You are capable of things that should be impossible. And yes, despite the challenges you face, yes, despite whatever it is you're going through right now, and in fact, you are capable of these things not only despite these challenges in your life, but actually because of them. I always tell people, because people ask me, they say, how much do you think you could squat if you had 2 legs? And I said, I don't know the answer to that, but I can promise you it would be far less than how much I can squat with 1 leg. Because had I never lost my leg, I never would have stepped into a weight room. Never would have had a reason to try to pursue this potential. Never would have developed the emotional, spiritual, and mental strength that it takes to not only pursue something like this, but just simply to believe that you are capable of doing so. That's a skill in and of itself. And that's really where the core skill of human potential lies. So today we're going to talk about how to foster, cultivate, develop, design your highest potential. Because it has to serve as the foundation, the starting point for everything else you are pursuing in life. And what's great is our app actually has built-in structures and systems to be able to help you do this. But even regardless of that, listen to this episode and it will give you everything you need to know in how to build to that highest potential, to know what that potential is, what it can be, and what you ultimately can achieve through it. Because that impossible performance, one of the cornerstone beliefs, one of the cornerstone tenets we hold, is that your potential is your responsibility. As Austin talked about a couple weeks ago, if you have the potential to go out and achieve in this capacity and to be able to motivate and influence and inspire others along the way and help to build them up and help their challenges in life be a little easier just because they know that somebody else out there has gone through it, battled it, and overcome it. If you have the capacity for that, which you absolutely do, it inherently becomes your responsibility. But I don't want you to think of this as some burden that you're taking on top of everything else that you have in life that you're balancing, because that's not at all what it is. What it is it's an opportunity for you to experience some of the single greatest gratification in life. Because when you build an individual who is exactly the person you needed in your darkest hour in life, and then you give them to somebody else and use them to serve that person who is struggling with the same challenges that you faced. Austin and I can both tell you from experience, there's not many times in life where you experience deeper gratification than that. And it is our wish and our dream for all of you to be able to experience that in your own life if you haven't done so already. So let's dive into potential. And I'm going to demonstrate it to you through a story. A story that I think almost everybody listening knows pieces of, but very few listening have heard in its entirety. It's the story that led me to sitting in this chair before you right now. It's the story that led to me overcoming cancer, running marathons, overcoming alcoholism, getting into powerlifting, deadlifting 500 pounds on a prosthetic leg, ultimately and against all odds, overcoming the resulting health challenges from the chemo I faced, working through immense engineering challenges, physical adaptations, and so many emotional, spiritual, and mental challenges along the way to step on the platform to squat 500 pounds as an amputee. And it's that same story that then led me to stepping back from one of the greatest passions I've ever known in life, to pursue a more complete picture of health. And since squatting that weight almost 10 months ago now, I'm now down 50 pounds with much less inflammation, moving better, not just in the squat, but in all movements in the gym and outside of the gym, able to be a better father to my daughter, and ultimately able to be a better speaker on this platform that we are so fortunate to have. This is my story. This is how I went from a broken, terrified, defeated child, and with their same spirit, built an individual who could do the impossible. And this exact same potential is available to you guys. But it starts as that scared, broken, defeated child. I was 18 years old. I was a senior in high school. And I'd just received an acceptance letter to my dream college. I had my whole future laid out before me. I thought that everything I was supposed to do in life was perfectly lined up and lay before me. And I'm sure, as everybody listening knows, you know that excitement in being a senior in high school. feeling like you're finally moving on, like you have your whole life ahead of you, feeling like you finally have everything kind of understood and figured out, even though many of us know that couldn't be further from the truth. That is how I felt. I thought my life was totally put together and totally perfectly laid out. Yet here I am, sitting in this doctor's office at Ohio State, waiting for news that I believe I already knew in my heart to be true, but I was too terrified to possibly accept. And that doctor came in, and in the span of about 3 minutes, he told me I was not going to be going to school next year. And in fact, I was instead going to spend my time undergoing a brutal regimen of chemotherapy, where I would be actively receiving drugs 21 days a month, every single week, sometimes continuous IV infusions for 5 days in a row. He told me 3 months from the date we were sitting in that room, I would be receiving an amputation of my right leg, regardless of how effective the chemo worked. And he told me all those dreams, all those hopes, all those aspirations I had for life were going to have to be put on hold and may never even be realized at all. And as I've said many times on this platform, hearing those words didn't make me sad, they didn't make me angry, they didn't make me upset. They left me completely feeling devoid of emotion, with nothing left to hold on to, not understanding how this could possibly even remotely reflect the reality in which I now lived. And just a short week after I was in that office hearing those words, I went into surgery to have my port placed and woke up to hearing the sound of that pump, the whirring of that pump, which if you've ever sat in that chair, you know that sound too well. I heard the whirring of that pump and looked down to see chemotherapy already being pumped into my veins. The first encounter I would have with that toxic malice. And I don't think I really thought about it too much at the time, because I was really just so focused on how do I get through this? How do I make it through this? How do I get back to where I want to be in life? I wasn't really focusing enough on that individual moment. But that chemotherapy hit me hard, and it hit me quick. And one thing most people don't realize if you haven't gone through chemo is that on the days you're actually sitting in the chair getting the chemo, those tend to be the days that you're actually feeling better than not. Because those are the days where your body has recovered enough to be able to withstand another beating from those toxic drugs. It's usually in the days following that you experience your very lowest of lows, where your body is totally beat down. For me, I had a number of symptoms I faced. I had the obvious ones that we know, the hair loss, the messed up fingernails, the skin changes, the weird taste, the nausea. But what I didn't expect to hit quite so intensely was the fatigue. The constant feeling as if it were the world's most monumental task just to be able to stand up out of a chair. And this was compounded by the fact that I was only traveling on crutches at this point. Then there were the effects on my GI tract. the doxorubicin specifically, was crushing my ability to take in and digest and process food. It left bleeding scars in my mouth, down my throat, in my stomach, all the way through my intestines, of which I still have those scars today. These scars would get so bad, these open wounds rather, would get so bad that I would lose the ability to eat, lose the ability to drink, and even lose the ability to talk due to the pain. There were many times throughout this process of chemo where I was taken up to the emergency room at Nationwide Children's so that they could hydrate me, put IV fluids in me, sometimes put IV nutrition in me, just to keep my body going because my GI tract had failed to such a capacity. They put me on heavy-duty painkillers to be able to manage the pain of these wounds. And not just the pain of the wounds, but the pain that rests deep in your bones as you take the new last injections, that forces your bone marrow to expand at alarming rates and put pressure on the inside of your bones that signals pain receptors that something is quite very wrong in your body. I remember the mornings I would wake up feeling as if sleep had been a chore, with my head ringing, my brain foggy, staring listlessly into the space before me. Wondering what I was even to do with the day that lay before me. I remember the moments in the hospital, being cut into time and again, whether for ports or for PICC line placement, or to take cultures of wounds, to get ultrasounds of my bleeding GI tract, MRIs, CAT scans, PET scans, constantly assessing both the progress of the cancer and the dangers of the treatment. It becomes very easy in this time to get into a headspace where you just sit back, where you just start letting things happen to you, because your will has grown so defeated, not weak, but defeated, that all you can do is accept the punishment that ensues. A punishment that maybe you never did anything to deserve, maybe you don't have any reason or explanation for, but one that you're enduring nonetheless. And in those moments, the thoughts start creeping into your mind. Is this even worth it? At what point does this so-called treatment remove me from my own humanity to such a degree that I'd rather take my chances with the cancer? And as somebody who may not have experienced events like this, that I can see how that would be a shocking thought to face. But for those who have sat in that chair, or another chair like it, which so many who have come on this podcast have, then you know very real and very intimately and very deeply that there are fates worse than death. And this progressive loss of humanity, this consumption of your own spirit, your own fire, your own drive, is certainly one of those fates. But there's one antidote. There's one avenue through which you can travel in these moments where you feel as if death and darkness would be the far superior option. There is one light you can look to that will give you that drive, that path, that reason to keep taking steps forward, even if you've had your limbs cut off to this disease. There's one light that burns so brightly and can fill you with such depth of humanity, can restore that connection to who you are and who you were designed to be so intensely, that it is the one thing that can keep you moving forward in these most harrowing of times. And that one thing which Austin and I have both found in our own journeys is that passion. As we've discussed in previous episodes, that passion is the fire of your heart, the ignition of your spirit and your soul. The living God that rests within your own spirit, your own vessel. It's the peace that brings consciousness to life, extends us beyond just simple mortal beings. It's that peace that allows us to have this connected consciousness that rests not just within ourselves, but within everyone we encounter. This passion can burn with an unbridled fire, and it can be fueled by the human emotion you experience in these times. And it helps you to slip free from that numbing feeling in which you face. It helps you to build and construct purpose around your life, a purpose so strong and resolute that not even the greatest sufferings in life may break you. And ultimately, that extends to the culture around you, how you influence those with whom you interact on a daily basis. And it's this passion, this fire that you hold within you. It may just start as a spark. It may feel as if it's a withering, dying flame through much of the greatest challenge in your life. But as long as you make the active decision to maintain and to hold on to some inkling of that fire, it can be grown. It can be grown to such heights that you may never have thought possible. This is where the process of being impossible starts. when I was that beaten, broken child, the one thing I could latch onto, the one thing that would give me a reason to ultimately be able to sit up after usually 45 minutes of working at it in those mornings where I felt completely removed from my own humanity, completely consumed by the darkness in which I lay. The one thing that would keep me moving was the understanding that I had the potential to build others up through this fight. By taking these challenges, taking this suffering, taking this impossible, facing it head on, and building a version of myself every single day who was capable of overcoming it, I could inspire and motivate and drive others in their own lives to do the same. And it was my passion for that art that kept me moving forward, kept me sitting up every morning, taking every challenge head on, and taking those steps, regardless of how many legs I possessed at the time. And it's that same fire that fueled the passion for that kid that ultimately allowed him to overcome his very hardest challenge. You see, as that chemo destroyed my GI tract to a greater and greater degree, it was also destroying my immune system. And this culminated in what was going to be my final dose of this most harrowing of agents, as it ate a hole directly through my colon and let all of the waste product in my body flood into my abdominal cavity with no immune system to be able to fight off any infection. I'll never forget that day of waking up with only enough strength to go to the bathroom, then drink a bottle of water because I was suffering from such intense thirst, and then fall asleep for another hour so I could repeat the cycle. On my third or fourth repetition, I couldn't make it back to bed, and I passed out on the couch. I woke up to paramedics trying to revive me, trying to bring me back to consciousness, nobody knowing what's going on. I'm rushed to a local hospital and immediately life-flighted to Nationwide Children's Hospital, where I'm brought to an ER trauma room that's converted very quickly to a surgical suite because my body was progressing into sepsis and then septic shock, and then my organs started shutting down. My liver, my heart, my lungs, my kidneys, one by one, they lost life. I received large incisions in my carotid artery and my femoral vein, where they hooked me up to an artificial heart and lung machine that pumps the blood out of your body, oxygenates it, filters it, and pumps it back in. No need to breathe. No need for your heart to circulate blood throughout your body. Yet my body was still shutting down. And doctors had to look my parents in the eyes and tell them to not expect me to live throughout the night. Until one physician decided she couldn't give up. Decided she had to find something to offer. She dug through the research and found case studies of experimental drugs, which they got approved for compassionate care use, built in the pharmacy, and then started administering them into me. And these drugs slowly started bringing me back. But the journey didn't end there. I had suffered so much physical trauma that doctors were telling my parents that I would never physically or mentally function independently again. I would face severe mental handicaps, not ever being able to think or reason or speak in the same capacity which I had before. I would suffer severe neurological and muscular trauma, keeping me from being able to walk independently if I ever regained that ability at all. And when I first started coming out of these comas, it was quickly apparent the damage that had been done. I failed first grade level exams, unable to name 5 words that start with the letter B. I was so weak I couldn't lift my own arm to scratch my nose. I could not move my legs at all, what was left of them. And the prognosis looked grave. And I was faced with an active decision in these moments. I could either surrender myself to the narrative that was being spun before me. I could internalize and accept the story that they were offering me about what my life would be. Or I could choose to reclaim that narrative for myself. I could make an active decision to decide what my own potential was going to look like. And despite whatever labels of what might be possible, what was impossible, whatever limitations people wanted to place on me, I could do just as I had done for the 9 months prior to overcome chemotherapy, and I could build an individual who was capable of doing those impossible things. I could build a version of myself who could not or should not have existed otherwise. I could be impossible myself. And thanks to that same passion that had started becoming built into a foundational purpose, and thanks to so many around me at that point who believed in me in the same capacity, I was able to do just that. So the 6 months of inpatient rehab they said it would take to maybe start taking my first steps again condensed into 2 weeks of physical therapy. And I took those steps. The severe mental handicaps I was to face for the rest of my life culminated in me earning a doctorate degree 6 years later. Those same neurological and muscular impairments culminated in me running marathons and setting records on a powerlifting platform, squatting more weight than any amputee has done in competition. And I use this story not as a lens to discuss my own achievements in life, but purely as an example of what you can achieve in your own life once you tear down these limitations, once you kindle that passion, that fire that you feel in your own heart for what excites you, for what lights your soul on fire, for what can be funneled into a drive toward a purpose in which maybe you've never known before. You can design the person who lives the life of your dreams. You can write down exactly who they are, how they live, what they have in life, what they give to others, what their habits are, what their values are, what their purpose is. You can create this right now, today. And yeah, it's going to change over time. It's going to adjust. It's going to look different 10 years from now than it does right now. But when you have that crystal clear image, that perfect picture of who you can create, what your highest potential truly looks like, it gives you passion, it gives you purpose, it gives you drive to face that fear, to face that impossible every single day. To not just focus on overcoming that challenge, but rather building the individual who is capable of it, of becoming impossible. And for so many people who say they have no idea how I survived what I survived, how I overcame what I overcame, how I do today what I still do today, it's this exact process, and it is accessible to everyone. You can go out today, regardless of the challenge you are facing in life, and regardless of all the limitations that you or others may have placed on your life. You can say, this is not going to be my story. This is not going to be the narrative to which I marry myself. I know that I have a potential beyond this. I am going to construct, I am going to design that highest potential. I'm going to let the fire of that passion that rages within me fuel a foundational purpose. And I am going to live as that person to the highest capacity of which I can every single day. And when you create this process, when you build this process into your life, you will have doors, you will have worlds open up to you that you could never have imagined previously. That kid who was broken, who was beaten, laying in that hospital bed, listening to the whir of that pump, watching that toxic, malicious chemotherapy being pumped into his veins, never would have dreamed that he would have the opportunity to sit before you today and share this message with you. But I'll tell you what he did know. He did know what he was passionate about. He knew that he had a responsibility to give that not just to himself, but to others. And most importantly, he knew that he was the one in charge of his own narrative. And when you adopt these three things, these simple key three pieces into your life, you will watch the entire world unfold before you. A world of opportunity, a world of life, a world of love, a world of the greatest moments of humanity. You can reclaim that humanity in which you may have lost touch. You can construct a vision for what this individual you are building in life will go on to achieve. You can become an impossible version of yourself, somebody who could not or should not otherwise have existed without the challenge you face in life. And you will get to experience things that you never thought possible for you. And I'll close with that quote that I love. I've always loved quoting since kind of day one of this journey. And that's from one of the greatest to ever do it himself, Mr. Walt Disney. He says that everybody should have the opportunity to do something impossible in their own lives. Because when you do the impossible, it really is so much fun. So go out today, guys. Start asking those questions of what is it I want to do in my life? What is it that this passion most highly burns for? What does it burn the very most brightest for? And how can I use it to build a foundation with purpose within myself? And almost more importantly, how can I then go on and give that to others? And at the end of the day, that's everything we're striving to do with Impossible Performance. Because at Impossible Performance, we are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you guys for listening. And as always, be impossible.